Welcome back to the Building Communities podcast. I'm your host, Brian Arnold, and this podcast is presented by the BIA of Central South Carolina. We have a very special guest today, Emily Martin, who is the newest Director of Government Affairs for the BIA of Central South Carolina. We are so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Excited to do this.
Yes, I have to admit that, as a longtime member of the BIA, I don't necessarily know how much the government affairs role, what does it do? How do we advance the membership and the association with our government affairs program? So what is your day-to-day like?
And to start off, that's completely understandable. There's a very confused state of what my role is, but then also why it's there. And honestly, I prefer it that way because then it means I'm doing my job. So if you aren't being inundated with regulation after regulation, that makes me happy that you don't know I'm doing that, because then it keeps you doing your work. But essentially day to day, I'm only 2 months into the role, but I am still trying to catch up and learn everything that I can about the industry, while also creating an understanding of what the ordinances out there are and the different, probably top 3, top 4 items that we are really tackling at the moment, as well as being able to organize all of the counties and municipalities, councils with the ordinances they're debating about and where they are in the cycle, so then I can prioritize my time. Every now and then, probably a few times a week, I meet with different council members from either the counties or municipalities we cover. And then the other little bit is spent communicating with members and trying to know their stories and for them to feel comfortable coming to me with concerns or questions about the government affairs side of the industry.
So this is a very kind of unique position in my mind. So how did you get into this role? Where did this passion for politics come from?
Came on a whim. I graduated from the University of South Carolina, and my summer after my freshman year, I randomly applied to an internship up on the hill, Capitol Hill up in DC. A friend of my sister was looking for interns. I said, why not? Ended up getting it, ended up going to DC for Senator Scott's office and fell in love, and I was starstruck from day one. I came back, finished schooling, following internships with top lobbying government relations firms and a former Speaker of the House firm. I ended up working for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce in Washington, D.C. in their Institute for Legal Reform, and then I was recruited to go work as policy director for another association on the federal level up in Washington, D.C. I came back here and originally was not thinking I was going to apply to this role. I knew I didn't have state and local experience, specifically local experience, and I wasn't sure if it was worth it, but the job was so lucrative and intriguing to me. Why not? And so on another whim, here we go, apply, and I am so fascinated and interested, and I'm loving it. I don't know much, or I didn't know much about BIA coming into it, but if there's one thing about me, I'm going to learn until there's no more learning to do, which, side note, impossible. So I'll keep learning, and I want to be the biggest holder of knowledge and education and advocacy when I am facing these council members, so that I can convey our message, and I'm not going to stop until I get there.
So what type of strategy do you think you're going to employ when trying to meet these new council members, the mayors? And I know you guys have been kind of on this tour of introduction. Is that a relationship building strategy?
Absolutely it is. It's also to get to know each other. I am a firm believer that this role is based on relationships. I think you can be the most intelligent, the most well-spoken, the most knowledgeable person out there about your industry, but if you are cruel and nasty and aggressive to your elected official, you're still not going to get anywhere. I think there's a fine balance between being professional and personal. However, if you don't have a relationship, then you can't build compromise, understanding, sympathy, whole 9 yards. And at the very basis of my job is being able to convey my members' needs in a respectful way that I can compromise with the council members. It's all relationships. I know that was just a lot, but it's relationship at the very base of it, and being able to know their face, they know my face, and build on a solid foundation, because I plan on being here for a very long time.
That's great. And we need that consistency. I think it's going to help go a long way. So, people have a go-to person when they have a question, or, if you can't know what's going on, or if you have a question and you don't know who to go to, you're just not going to, don't worry about it.
Exactly. Take the easy way out. Why go and onto that endeavor and try to explore a possibility to help an industry that is not reaching out to you? You need to be front and center, and they need to know who you are.
So that brings me to the idea of lobbying. Like, when you're out there advocating for the membership, are you lobbying? Is that a dirty word? Is that something that is okay to say?
It is okay to say, I promise.
Okay.
I wouldn't say I'm lobbying. It's a little convoluted on local and state level. I will get there eventually, but as of right now, not yet. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about lobbying and lobbyists and the whole world of lobbying. Granted, there's a few reasons why it got that way. However, today it's highly regulated, and not to mention the fact that elected officials, they may have one expertise, they may have two, but for them to know everything that our government oversees, which, fine disclosure here, it's a lot. They can't be an expert in everything. And so you need to rely on lobbyists to convey the message of what each industry is. So just as if I am advocating on behalf of the BIA members, they're the experts, but I'm conveying to the council members, to the mayors, to this town council through them, or they're communicating through me. And at the end of the day, lobbying is what gets things done. Otherwise, no one would understand impact of any bill or any text in a legislative action.
What do you feel like is the number one or two things that you want to start educating some of the government officials that you're meeting with about what the BIA is all about, what it's doing, what we're kind of promoting as an association?
That's a very good question. It actually came up a little bit in my initial interview for the position. And to be quite honest, the number one thing would be the effect of what they're implementing. So if you're putting a moratorium, what does that mean for right now and in the future? However, also, not only looking at right now what's going on, but going back to the understanding in the future, you have to be able to see the impact of what our association does. So you can say, this is destroying X, Y, and Z, this development. Okay, but that development is going to put how much money into your economy to help with your infrastructure and your roads. I believe one of the studies is for every dollar put in, it's at least tripled out or something along those lines. And just being able to communicate those tidbits and that consumable information, easy to understand, nothing too technical, is the gist of what needs to be done, because like everything, it's misconstrued and you always get one side story. And I can tell you right now, there's two sides to every issue, every industry. And like I said before, it's that compromise. So I see you want this to happen. Let me show you what we want and how we can meet in the middle. And it's the educating of both sides to all parties.
Yeah. I bet your economics emphasis and degree is coming in quite handy with the BIA push.
It definitely is. I think everybody loves a good economic talk, especially in government. And if there's one thing I love, it's data, it's logic, it's X plus Y equals Z and putting in basic terms. I love a good graph, a good visual, and that has actually been an important part as well in communicating the impact of developments and housing in communities. So you see, this is the supply, this is the demand, this is the average cost, this is who's buying the houses, this is what they want. And that kind of helps frame the whole idea of responsible growth in these councils, and being able to showcase that what we're trying to push or what we want is actually what the consumer wants as well. It's not just caught up out of the blue, but using data behind it to really emphasize it.
Do you think you will be, I guess a better way to put this question is, how do you see your position a year from now, 3 years from now, evolving and growing? I'm assuming it's 2 months in. It's hard to say, but we're hopeful that you're going to be around for a while.
I'm hopeful
that
too.
Consistency is going to certainly help our messaging, right?
And that's exactly it. If you have one person for 1 month, one person next month, one person next month, there's no congruence in seeing who represents the industry and having that personal relationship that we were talking about. Mm-hmm. If you have one constant that is the go-to, to be honest, if someone is pushing for a beneficial ordinance for our industry, but they don't know who to talk to in the BIA, they're not going to do it. They're not going to waste their time. And so having the consistency and the constant point of contact is crucial. However, I also think that even, like you said, it's been 2 months. Once I finally get caught up in learning, it's going to be imperative that the more I develop these relationships, the more I can help educate. And it's kind of going along with your whole being of getting the members to tell their stories too. There's something to be said for members being able to convey what they're going through versus just messaging through me.
Sure.
And so I think building on that advocacy part will hopefully expand as well.
How would you like to see that message delivered?
Oh,
in
goodness.
terms of the how can our members help you get our stories out for you to kind of push the whole agenda along?
Well, that's exactly it. And at the most impactful way, it's going to be 2-3 sentences on the exact way that this ordinance or this issue that you're facing impacts you and your business and your community. They want to hear from people in their community that they represent. At the end of the day, they're there to represent you. Mm-hmm. And when you're out there saying, well, with ordinance number 277, and it's going to do this to my company, which in turn will do this, I'm out here struggling, please help. We actually just, when we were meeting with the city of Camden, we brought along a member and some member stories saying, this is the reality of what's happening. It's not just us making up these intangible numbers or issue scenarios, but it's actually what's happening in the community. And you can put the issue to the face and see what the impact is.
Yeah. Do you have any good stories of working on Capitol Hill?
Oh, goodness. Good stories of working on Capitol Hill.
So I actually heard, it was funny, I was at a soccer gamer the other day, and one of the parents were talking about one of their kids that are going to intern up on Capitol Hill, and that they're going to get put up into this, basically a dorm, mm-hmm. and they can't have any cell phones.
What?
And yeah, and there's like the only technology they could have was to be able to be on their computer and on a secure server, and they were waiting to tell their son until after school was over because they didn't want him to flip out that he wasn't gonna be able to use his cell phone for a month because while he's doing this internship he was a page.
That checks out.
Page. He was a page. He wasn't an intern.
But on the floor, that checks out.
He had gotten to be a page for the month of during the summer, and he couldn't have a cell phone. And they're like, "But he's got a girlfriend. What is he gonna do?"
Oh my gosh! Thank goodness I did not go through that.
Yeah.
I have heard many, many stories similar to that. I mean, for how big the government in DC is, everybody pretty much knows everybody. And if they don't, they know someone you know. And so there's plenty of stories similar to that. I had a couple friends when I was at the chamber, U.S. Chamber of Commerce. It's situated right across from the White House, actually.
Okay.
And so when the White House Wi-Fi gets interrupted, our Wi-Fi, the chamber, would get interrupted. And so our phones also would just not have any service because service would be cut down. And so nowhere near for a month as a page would. But, you know, those 2 months were pretty dire.
I bet. The amount of information passing through, you know, a college kid, a high school kid, it's got to be immense.
I can't imagine, to be quite honest. And if you're having all these kids come in, I don't know how else you would regulate it, to be quite honest.
Sure. I mean, they already had to deal with some crazy stuff happening on the floor this past year or so, right?
Fair.
So, there's a lot of opportunities for mistakes and bad stuff to happen, I guess, when you give teenagers a phone and a whole bunch of information that they may or may not know what to do with.
Exactly. That's not unreasonable to say.
Would you say you caught that government bug the political bug when you got that first internship?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was in awe walking to the Capitol, getting off at Union Station, walking over to the office buildings just every time. And one of the roles of the interns to give tours of the Capitol. So, you know, you take these private groups and this is the rotunda, this is the old chamber. And every time, gosh, I sound so dorky. It's just so exciting for me. And I think there's something to be said for knowing that you're impacting your community. I think it's something to be said for that you're going to have tangible results, which is honestly why I'm so impressed and why the local level has been so lucrative, because these changes, now this might come as a surprise, but the federal government moves a little slow. Local does not. And so it's been a lot more fast-paced, but the impacts that are having on the community are right there, and they're, for all intents and purposes, pretty immediate. I have to say that has been one of the biggest things to adjust to, but just knowing the change that's happening and either for our members, advocating for them and making their community industry better is unparalleled.
Yeah, you can definitely see the passion all over your face.
Thank you.
To have somebody in this role that is like die hard, this is so much. It looks just like it's going to be so much fun for you.
And that's exactly it. I mean, I may not know everything right now, but if I'm going to promise you one thing, I will work hard because I enjoy it and the curiosity and the learning. And I want to do a good job. I sometimes wish I wasn't so type A, but you know what? It doesn't let me let up on that.
That's right. What do you think your biggest challenge is going to be outside of catching up on the learning curve? Since I'm assuming you didn't have a big background in the building industry, but you seem to have a good understanding of how to play the game. Mm-hmm. So what do you think your biggest challenge is right now?
I don't think it's going to be a challenge with the councils as much as it is with the anti-development communities and the rhetoric.
What are some of the things that you're hearing from them?
So they don't want any building. They don't want any growth. They don't want any development, which I sympathize with. However, we're not bringing the growth. We are accommodating the growth that's coming to you.
Blame California.
Yeah, California, come on. And at the end of the day, I sympathize. I do. However, you can't take it out on development when we're bringing all these jobs in. They need to live somewhere. And unless you want to get placed out of your home because of costs, new houses need to be developed. That's supply and demand at the most basic level. Right.
It's like you're basically amputating your foot in order to,
Exactly.
But all you would actually need is, a new sole on your shoe.
Exactly. I love that comparison. That's
Probably.
exactly it. Because
My foot hurts, but
here.
it's going to affect my knee soon, so I'm just going to cut it off, even though I could just need a new insole.
Exactly.
I guess that'd be a good analogy for it, wouldn't it?
I really like how you took that a step farther. Yeah.
I had to complete the thought of where I got there.
I mean, I appreciate it. It is how it is, and I think it goes back to education. And of course, you have people who only want their side, which
I
is
think
everywhere.
There's probably an element of whether it's local politics, whether it's national politics, we have really loud people on one side and really loud people on the other side. And there's a whole giant group of people in the middle that if they just knew what was even happening, we can bring them to one side or the other.
Yes.
And that, I guess, is your role. Let's find those middle ground voters that are willing to come out and say, no, this is not the best choice of action. We need to actually grow, but grow smartly. And
exactly.
Let us help you grow smartly and not just put them up wherever we want. I mean, we get that.
Exactly. And we were talking about experts earlier. Our members are the experts. Their livelihood is knowing the laws and the zoning ordinances and the impacts of this and how it's helpful. I think there is something to be said for council members of whatever level. They represent their whole district that they're chosen for, not just the loud ones, but all of the opinions. And if you want to, I'm happy to sit down and tell you why we think this, and I want to understand why they want to think that way too. I understand. Counties need to make money, and they want their money and they want their fair share. That's good for our business too. What's not great is when there's not a lot of input from the experts in the industry, and that comes with the loud voices.
So I guess it comes back to a previous question, but what can our membership do to help you? Is there anything that you see right off the bat that you're like, if we had members doing this outside of their personal story, is there anything that we can do to help?
Relationships. If you have a relationship with a elected official or someone working that impacts the BIA in our counties, I would love to know that. And then we can work together to help that relationship and to get our point across. If you can bring the expert, I can bring the message, and I can help deliver that with you. I think another part of it will be the identifying where... Oh, so sorry.
That's okay.
That's all. I was about to say something I probably shouldn't say. But.
I know it's tough. You got to edit yourself as you talk sometimes, but
we'll leave it at that.
That sounds good. That's fine. So, what do you really think about Ben? No, I'm just playing. just playing Ben. Ben's awesome.
He's so great.
We do have a lot of events and things that provide great opportunities to build better relationships with our members and with our government officials. Have you thought about maybe inviting them to some of our events and saying, hey, come meet our people?
And that's exactly it. Again, the personal level relationship. Now, I may be wrong with this, but I believe there is a shooting event, clay shooting.
Yeah, not just a general shooting.
Let's not do that.
Advocate for
we have
those.
A clay shooting. Okay, I'm not from South Carolina. All right.
Where are you from?
I held my first fish the other day, actually, at a BIA event.
At the bass tournament?
Yes, I've never seen a fish that close before.
Really?
I'm from Charlotte, so literally 90 miles away, but never done that before.
No, you didn't ever go fishing on Lake Norman, huh?
Okay. No, it was very. I thought I had to really clench on it, the jaw.
Oh yeah, you had it hooked.
Yeah.
Was it?
That was. Yeah.
Wasn't traumatic for you, was it?
It's a little traumatic, so we can just move on. That was just a lot for me to handle.
The clay shoot will just be orange rubber clay discs that are flying through the air that they get shot out.
And I believe it's taking place in Kershaw County, so let's have Kershaw County officials come out. Mm-hmm. And Ben and I were talking about that. there's I said it in my interview and it's kind of stayed with me now. There's a common saying in DC where if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And it's
eat or be eaten, huh?
Exactly.
Nice.
And so if you're not part of the conversation and you're not having the conversations or the relationships with anybody making decisions, then your perspective's not taken account for and you're up for debate. And I think getting the officials out into events, into a casual, not so rigid situation where you can be yourself is an incredible point.
All right. Then membership, you have gotten your task, okay? We need to know if you know these members or of the councils, and we need your stories of how things that are being implemented are impacting you on a daily basis. Reach out to Emily, get to know her. She'd love to get to know all of the members of the BIA. I'm sure of it. And just thank you so much for tuning in to the Building Communities podcast, sponsored by the BIA of Central South Carolina. Again, I'm your host, Brian Arnold. Thank you so much, Emily Martin, for being with us today. And we look forward to having you around for a very long time.
Yes, you will.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.